Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 2 of Berserk. And I watched episode 1 last night, and I was like, no, I need to watch the next episode and go ahead and see, like, how do we start this journey? And I'm really excited. I am excited by the idea that we are starting this journey with our main protagonist, who we technically don't have a name for. I think it's Guts. We don't have a name for him yet, but I'm sure that we're going to find out this episode what that name is, because you wouldn't have us go the entire series without knowing his name, right? Right? But I'm really excited because, like, Vinland Saga, the series that this technically is replacing for my channel, Vinland Saga is very historical fiction. It's very grounded in realism, right? I mean, there's anime elements, but it's a very realistic story. There's nothing supernatural or weird about Vinland Saga. This already has people becoming monsters, and there's like possible ties to like vampires or fairies or demons or other entities. So it feels very like I'm getting like 1980s Dungeons and Dragons vibes from it, and like Lord of the Rings vibes. I'm so excited because I love Lord of the Rings. I like grew up in the early 90s. My aunt, who was older than me, had lots of things from the 80s that were very like Dungeons and Dragons-esque. So I'm really excited by that. I like the concept that we're dealing with something that's very medieval fantasy, and that has me excited. And this last episode gives us lots of things to think about. Like, what are these objects, this MacGuffin that he's after or that he knows of? What is with the brand? What is with Griffith, the king that has supposedly plunged the world into dark times, but he's very pretty? What are we going to do? I mean, granted, I think that's Griffith. We've only seen like a little image of his demure head in a suit of armor, and then seen his beautiful, I think it's him, in the end credits. So I don't know, but I love the OP and AD. I love the alt-rock genre. I love what this is setting up. I love the idea that we're going into this series knowing virtually nothing about our main character, but knowing just based on the conversation he's had with Lord Fief, or Fife, like just knowing like kind of his mentality. He's clearly gone into a dark place, and clearly from what we've seen in the end of episode 1, where he seems like this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kid that's ready to fight all the monsters, some shit's gone down. And that's really changed his worldview. And so I'm excited that we're gonna like back up and see like what's led him to this point, what's gotten him into this darkness, and then go from there. So I'm really excited. You know, the question is gonna be whether we end the series back where we started from, or whether this first episode is going to be like a checkpoint, right? That's the big question. But I'm really excited. I don't know exactly what to expect, but we're going back into the past, start from square one, and I'm ready to go. So before we start, though, I didn't get a chance to mention them in the last episode, but I want to give a special shout out to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, because on Patreon, I'm really grateful for the support on YouTube and Patreon. Y'all are amazing. I'm glad you enjoy listening to my rambles and what I have to say about anime and donghua, but I wanted to give a shout out to the philanthropy tier. They get the special perk over on Patreon of getting mentioned in these videos because they're awesome and they support me far more than I deserve. So thank you guys so much. It's very humbling. But a shout out, of course, to Edgar, to Dana, to Anime Annie, to Nameless Monster, to Tyrone, to Shimoyama, to our moderator Be Happy, to Truck, to Kiri, to Lou Genesis, to Kuba Lou Tech, to Translucent Men, to Sunspots, to Eric, as well as Librarian of Lang. And I think I've not missed anybody, but thank you all so much. These individuals are amazing, and I really appreciate all the support that they give. All of my love. So, with that being said, I'm ready to go with this second episode and see what we get. But I hope you all are too. So we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 2 of Berserk and see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this, y'all. Curiouser and curiouser. I really love this episode. I am fully on board with our 3 mains, with Casca, with Griffith, and with Guts, that I feel is going to be this triangle. I'm not exactly going to call it a love triangle because I get the distinct impression with this series that, much like many historical anime and series I have, there's not going to be a lot of loving going on in this series. but I'm gonna ship it anyway. I'm kind of torn because I see the enemies to lover potential in both Casca and Guts, as well as Griffith and Guts. And then I see that Casca may be having this kind of mentor, respect, idolization, romantic interest in Griffith from Casca, but I don't think Griffith is acting upon it with Casca, but we'll talk about that when we get deeper in the episode. But getting some like little tiny little nuggets of things put into place here, and what we know by what's happening. So the Bethelit, right? That's what it's called, the Bethelit. Let's go over here and talk about in the present. We're just gonna put present Guts here, and miscellaneous things here, and excuse my dogs. But we know that Guts is out to find Griffith, which means at some point, I think he's going to join the Band of the Hawk. I think he's going to join them because he wants to get revenge on Griffith, and he keeps it's, again, talk about Vinland Saga, right? I'm going to make a couple comparisons, so I'm going to try not to be spoilery. If you've not seen Vinland Saga, go watch it. And hopefully my dogs will stop barking, Huckleberry. But I do think that there is definitely a connection between Guts and Thorfinn, the character from season 1 of Vinland Saga, because they both, and this, you find this out early on in the series, that they both have this vendetta against a certain character, and they kind of become obsessed with trying to chase after that character and get their revenge upon them, right? That's a big theme in both series. And so it seems like Guts is just like, oh, the one guy that he couldn't beat is Griffith, and so he's going to go after him to try to keep beating him. And it feels like it's going to keep being like I'm going to keep challenging you, I'm going to keep losing. But we know he's out to find Griffith at some point. If he joined the band at one point, he's either separated or kicked out or left or was abandoned, right? He could have been abandoned. I feel like Griffith seems a little bit opportunistic. He reminds me a little bit, again, of Vinland Saga, a little bit like Canute. I feel like Canute might have been a prototype based on Griffith. I feel like Griffith is only out to use Guts because he's like, you're a soldier and you're very strong. And I feel like Griffith finds Guts to be like an unpolished diamond, like a diamond in the rough. He's like, you could be really useful to me and my men, but you've got potential. You're just kind of rough around the edges. And I feel like Griffith wants to kind of sand him off, right? So buff him out. And that's why he's keeping him around, because he sees potential, right? That's something that could be of use. And maybe there's more to it. We don't know. He takes a liking to him. He takes a fancy to him. We'll talk about Griffith. I'm obsessed with Griffith right now. But we'll see about that. But yeah, so we know at some point he's out to find Griffith, get revenge on him. He joins the band and separated or kicked out. We do know that there's these Bethelit. I could be wrong on this, but that Guts, he collects them. He collected from the Thief Lord, which is mentioned in this episode. So we're going to tie back to that. But what do? What do they do? That is the question. These little MacGuffins that have noses and eyes and lips on them, these little eggs, what do they do? What is the point of them? Griffith has one. Griffith has one around his neck. So clearly there's a tie there. Also, we know that Griffith is now the king. So there's something there too. Griffith is the king. Now, he very well could be like the prince or the king. I doubt that he's the king at this point when we're in the flashback. He could very well be a prince. Like, he's just a prince that's been in charge of this mercenary band. He's like sowing his wild oats away from the throne. Is like, oh, dad, mom, I'm going to go off and do my thing and train, and I'll come back and be king whenever. And then something happens where he has to go back and be king. But he just has like an ethereal princely tone to him. Like the way that the air about him, the way the music changes in the episode. Like you're like, oh, he's a prince. I felt like Monty Python where they're like, he must be a king. He hasn't got shit all over him. He just has that vibe to him that you're like, you seem like you're ethereal or regal. Has a princely vibe to him, but he's very, very strong. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's a prince, and maybe Casca knows he's a prince and nobody else really does, and they just follow him because of his strength. and then he gets called to be king. And maybe that's why Guts gets abandoned. He's called to be king and he has to leave. I'm really excited by the fact that we've set so much up in this episode right off the bat, and now we're going to be going through the series, right? So we get this gnarly grizzled hand that looks like a tree. It's just like the tree bark. It's a gnarled and grizzled hand. And they repeat the same phrase they started out the last episode. The idea that in this world, is it law or is it God that rules? And that humanity has no free will. They repeat that again for us, and then we cut straight to the OP, right? Which is such a bop. I love it. So then, okay, going back to this idea, what I really like about it is that in the flashback, we establish a lot of things with Guts. And so I'm glad we finally get his name. I can call him Guts without being like our protagonist. So we talk about Guts and what we know about him so far. He seems to be just a wanderer. And he's just doing mercenary work for money. Yeah, because he takes on the Gray Knight here. We have him established that we have, what's his face? Bazuso, the Gray Knight, right? He's just this big man that takes on everything. And it's like, we're just mercenaries. And so that's when we see Guts with the huge blade. Now, the question is, where did he get the huge blade? The question is, the sword that he has, is it Gambino's? So that's a question of Gambino. Is it his sword? Did Gambino give it to him? Who is Gambino? Gambino seems like maybe a father figure or mentor to Guts. Their hairstyle is kind of the same. So, if you told me that he was secretly Guts' father, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's more along the lines of him. He seems like someone, based on the flashback we get, that took Guts in, maybe trained him, and then something happened where Guts killed him. So it could have been one of those situations where Guts felt betrayed in the moment and turned his sword on Gambino, and then Gambino ends up dying and Guts feels guilty about it. We'll talk about that whole flashback scene because it was like Vinland Saga flashbacks majorly. But the point is, Guts has this giant sword and he's capable of using it. And Griffith is very good at reading people and realizes that he's reckless and brave, but has no regard to his own safety. He charges into battle, doesn't think about how he could possibly be hurt. He just is. It's like he doesn't care if he's killed or not. It's just all very reckless, and he's just living day to day, which seems to be the case with him. Now I'm gonna put Griffith up here because I really like Griffith a lot, and he seems to be good at reading people, which would help you in a fight, because the thing about it is, part of being in a battle is knowing your opponent and being able to attack and get the upper hand. And with Guts, him and Griffith seem polar opposites, where Guts is just relying on raw strength and power. He's not really thinking about the strategy side of it. He's just like, I'm just going to go. Not to say that he can't strategize, because he does, use certain moves to his advantage, like attacking the axe a certain way and using the moves. Like, I'm not saying he's not thinking about what he's doing in a fight, but strategy is not his top priority. Griffith seems like someone that would analyze a battlefield, analyze what needs to be done, and then do things very precisely and calculated. That, just based on what we've seen so far, seems to be the difference between the two of them. And Griffith even points out, he's like, yeah, things worked out to your advantage against Bazuso, but if that axe hadn't cracked a certain way, if things hadn't gone exactly right, he's like, you would have been dead. So he's like, you just got lucky that things worked out to your favor. And he's like, it's almost like Griffith is kind of like judging him and chiding him, being like, you really should have thought about this and what would have happened if this hadn't worked. And Guts is like, just leave me alone. But yeah, so we have this idea of, do you really want to fight me, this kid? And this Guts as a kid, we don't know exactly how old he is at this point. I'm going to guess he's like 16 or 17, based on the guns that he has, because no 10-year-old would have those guns. But I think that he's like probably 16 or 17. I mean, he's clearly nearly an adult, right? I mean, in the present time, we don't know exactly how much time has passed. In the present time, Guts seems like he's in his like mid to late 20s. And here in the past flashback, he seems like he's maybe 16, 17, 18 at the most. Like he's just becoming a man, right? Just getting to that age, right? And so that's when he fights Bazuso. I just love the way that sometimes the anime gets those really manga-esque shots, and it's very 80s and 90s where there's like a still frame and it's just like boom, like you have the still frame at the end of Guts versus Griffith and you have the still frame of him getting the knight. It's very dramatic and I love it a lot, right? And then Bazuso goes down. Okay, so I wanted to get this conversation here that we see Guts with the sword having taken Bazuso down and doing it just for the money. That's all he did it for. And they're like, now everyone charge at once. And so we see Griffith with the red little befelet or whatever it is, holding it into his chest, and he has his armor on. I love that his name is Griffith and he's the Band of the Hawk and his armor has a griffin on it. Like I love that it's bird themed, which again ties to, if you look at Guts, the little leather band on his belt looks like a devil tail. And then you have Griffith, who with the wings and stuff seems like an angel. So you have our angel and our devil, right? We have our, which, I'm getting like Devilman Crybaby kind of symbolism. Like, is Griffith an angel? Or is he the opposite, right? Is Guts a devil? It's fascinating, right? I'm loving the symbolism. But yeah, they say, I didn't know our opponents had a warrior with such amazing skills. So we see Corcus. Corcus is there, right? So we have our band. I'm going to kind of put them down here. Our band of people. We have Corcus, who seems arrogant. He's arrogant. He rushes into things without thinking, which Casca gets onto him. And he seems very like comical and snide. Then we'll have Casca. We'll put Casca here. I like Casca's character a lot already. But we have Casca. So yeah, he's like, is he a mercenary or something? So I'm wondering if he's stronger than you. I like that Corcus is just like, do you want to challenge him, Griffith? Do I see that look in your eyes? Like you might want to. So Griffith has a little talisman, but we don't see him with it again. Our leader's on another level, right, Griffith? And so they leave the fort. So basically we held the castle for 3 months, not the 3 days they expected. And we helped the Fief Lord escape. So basically the Band of the Hawk were there to allow the Fief Lord to get out and to seize the castle. And then the mercenary group that came with Guts involved kind of threw them off and got them to finally leave. Okay. So, yes, there is a tie to the Fief Lord. So it would make sense if Guts is retracing his steps and trying to find Griffith in the present. Finding the Fief Lord would be a definite checkpoint on that map, being like, do you know where Griffith is? And the Fief Lord ends up not knowing where he's at. So there we are. So it's like another dead end. So yeah, I do like the fact that they try to recruit Guts to join their mercenary group and keep with him. But Guts has a very like Askeladd vibe to him, where he's just like, I don't care about you. I'm just doing this for my own agenda. Thanks, bye. And something about Guts that is very apparent is that he does not want to be touched, which is going to come back with Casca later on. He does not want to be touched. He doesn't like the idea of physical contact, and we'll talk about that later, right? And the idea that he doesn't want people to get near him. So yeah, and we have Guts kind of wandering all by himself, right? So, I mean, there's a lot to be said of why Guts doesn't want to be touched. I mean, you can go a lot of directions with it. We don't know Guts' backstory. We know he's tied to this character, Gambino. We don't know how. We don't know to the extent. I'm getting like a Levi Kinney vibe with from Attack on Titan with Gambino and Guts. We'll see. But you could say a lot of things, like, was Guts a slave? Was he physically assaulted or abused as a kid? And that is like, He talks about the demons touching him, and he wants them to stay away, like, get off me, like, stay away. Does he consider the mercenaries to be part of that, like, demonic hand coming after him? And he's just like, I want you to stay away from me, just let me do what I need to do. There's a lot to think about with that, and again, I feel like as the series goes on, we're gonna find out why Guts doesn't like physical contact, what's up with that, why he like retreats from it. He just doesn't want that touch, right? That physical intimacy, and Casca kind of invades that space, which we'll talk about when we get there. But yeah, we find that the group looking over him like, that's the guy who beat Baziso, and then Corcus is like, well, he's probably got some money on him. Corcus is interesting. Corcus has like, he's got that arrogant side to him, but he's kind of like sleazy a little bit. But like a part of me thinks he reminds me of Jean from Attack on Titan in kind of his like brazenness. But then he's a lot sleazier than Jean. And he's just like, he's very impulsive, right? Very impulsive, and kind of just doesn't think, just does things. And he gets, you know, they kind of yell at him like, this is all your fault that all of our men died. And then we have Griffith, who I'm in love with him already. We know virtually nothing about him, but I'm kind of in love with Griffith. His character design, it's like peak 90s androgynous Bishonen, man. I'm like, yes, please. He has this very regal, serene vibe. I am all about characters that subvert the effeminate man trope, because a lot of times the more effeminate guys in sometimes literature, they are viewed as weaker. And I love already that Griffith is the strongest one there, and he has like the pretty boy vibes, and he's like, no, I'm just better than you. I'm like, yeah. But he doesn't flaunt it, right? He doesn't. One thing I really like about Griffith's character so far is he's clearly the strongest one there, and he's very ethereal, very regal, very pretty, but he doesn't flaunt it. He doesn't go around being like, yes, I'm the best, or he's just very matter of fact, very, very astute, matter of fact, objective, and that's it. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And I feel like that's why maybe his men respect him so much, because he's just like very astute, like, no, this is how we do things. And I like that about his character. I'm all about subverting, like, you see him this way, and then he's really strong, and he doesn't, there's no wasted effort in his fighting. Something that's very different from him and Guts is just like an assault. He's just barreling through. It reminds me of Thorfinn from Vinland Saga Season 1. And then you have Griffith, who's very much like, nope, parry, stab, done. Like, Griffith is like, I'm not wasting any effort. I'm just going to do, and that's it. Ta-da. And whereas he's like, you're wasting a lot of energy, Guts, when you really don't have to. Right? So I love that. I love that there's like no wasted effort. Everything has a purpose and is calculated, right? But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's a prince. He like has his outfit is a little bit more tailor-made than some of the other guys. His sword has the very princely scabbard. It's all very decorative and fancy. But he's so pretty, and those blue eyes. And he just says, do what you like, right? I feel like that is something too. Griffith telling Corcus, like, do what you like. If you want to go after him, sure, go. I feel like that is Griffith being somewhat trustworthy and confident in his men, knowing their skill. And then when things start to go awry and they realize just how strong Guts is, that's when he's like, okay, Casca, we need to break this up. This is maybe not the best thing, right? And so then Corcus and them, I was planning to beat Baziso and become famous. So I love Casca's entrance. Like, Corcus is like, well, this guy just beat me to the punch. I love Casca's entrance of her just standing there. Like, he's like, I'm not going to let somebody steal my thunder. And she's like, you're going to die. I love Casca. What I love about her already is that she very much, again, subverting tropes. She has this femininity to her. Like, her lips, there's like, they put a little pink on her outfit, like, just in case you don't know she's a woman. But it's like, come on. They put like a little pink on her outfit because why not? But she has this like feminine beauty to her, where she has like she has the short hair, sure, but it's like cut a certain way. Like, she has like the feminine features, but she is, what I love about her is, one, she can be feminine, but also clearly is strong and has this like air of confidence about her. But also all the men there respect her because she's stronger than them. It's like Griffith, Guts, her. It's like the three of them are the top three right now in the party, and they respect her for it, which I'm all for. And they make the comment that she is the second, maybe third strongest of the group, next to Griffith and Guts, but she gave up her womanhood to be a mercenary. So there's this understanding amongst all the men that she's not going to sleep with them. She's given up her feminine wiles to be a man, quote unquote, with the group. And that's why she's mad. She gets mad when Griffith makes her sleep beside Guts. I can understand why she'd be upset, right? Because she's like, I'm one of the guys. Why are you making me sleep beside him just based on my biology? And it's also kind of sexist of Griffith, where he's just like, well, you're a woman, so, you know, it's natural for a woman to heat up a man. He's like, you expect me to do it? You know, one of those situations. So I can understand why she's not happy about it. She's not happy that she has to do it. She's like, why me? Like, why couldn't you do it, Griffith? And Griffith's like, you expect me to do it? No. You know. So there is a little bit there that I can understand why she's upset, right? And she's just kind of like, I'm supposed to be one of the guys, and you're using my gender, my sex against me. And Griffith is like, you know, and she, of course, Griffith's like, well, I can't sleep next to him. So I very much understand why she would be upset about it. So he's like, well, you'll see what happens. And so then we have this other guy that we don't have a name for yet that's sharpening the knives. He's like, oh boy, Corcus. Griffith, is it all right to leave it up to him? And then Griffith is just like, Griffith's like, well, we'll see what happens. It's interesting, right? Again, we don't know what that red amulet that he has does. And so they're like, man, they're just messing this all up. Corcus lost his nerve, even though he brought all of this on. I told you so. And that's why Griffith says, Casca, you'd better help him. She's like, are you kidding me? It's Corcus's fault. And all Griffith has to do is just look at her. He just looks his eye being like, did I stutter? Come on. So yeah, so Casca clearly respects Griffith and knows her place. He's at the top of the ladder, and if he says something, do it. So, but there's almost like a sense of Griffith having some kind of like, is it just his power as a knight? Does this little amulet thing he have like affect it? Again, does the amulet thing that they have allow them to have control over parts of humanity? We don't know. We do know that Guts does not have the brand yet, right? And they're like, Casca. And she shoots him with the arrow. I like that Casca kind of also has a kind of like serene air to her as well. When she fights, it's almost like she's imitating Griffith. Like, I feel like she looks up to Griffith a lot and imitates him because she wants to be like him. Now, whether or not there's anything romantic that she feels for Griffith, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could maybe make that argument that she's imitating him and following him because she likes him. I would like to think it's more that she idolizes and respects him as a fighter, and she's trying to imitate him and be as good as him. I don't know if there's any type of attraction she has towards Griffith. You could argue that. I could see that. But, and I don't, the thing about it is, I don't want to immediately ship Casca and Guts, because even though I feel like some people are like, oh, as soon as she had to lay down beside him, they're like, oh, time to ship Casca and Guts together because they had to like sleep nude next to one another. I don't want to do that because Guts hates the idea of being touched. And so the idea that she was beside him, he's probably like, ugh. And maybe that will lead to something. I wouldn't have a problem with shipping Casca and Guts together, but we need more. We need more of them one-on-one. Like right now, she hates him. She hates him. She wants Griffith to kill him, get him out of the way. I need Casca and Guts to have more interactions. I'm all for the Griffith and Guts shipping though. Like, enemies to lovers, like, yes please. I'm like, the chemistry there is off the charts, where Griffith's just like, I don't know, and Guts is like, Guts being like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm here for that dynamic. I'm like, yes please. And if we have this triangle between Casca, Guts, and Griffith, I'm here for it. But again, we have barely anything to go off of. But Guts and Griffith have amazing chemistry. Like, they're just, they bounce off each other really, really well. And I could kind of see where maybe you could have the Casca and Guts shipping, because Guts seems to, like, for a brief second hesitate with her. So Guts doesn't seem to be like, there's a little chivalry there. A little bit. There's a little chivalry there where he's just like, oh, a woman. Oh, and she's just like, take me seriously. And then he does, but it's fascinating, right? And that's when Griffith shows up. The moment Griffith shows up, like, the air changes. Like, the melody gets all serene and whimsical and everything changes. He shows up in this beautiful gray blue horse. Like, everything about him, I'm all for. He has, like, the regal purple, like, saddle that he's on. And Guts goes to, like, strike against him and is immediately cut through in the chest. He doesn't get stabbed in the heart. And just, there's a coldness to Griffith that I think is very intriguing. It feels like he's like a fluid stream. Like, Guts is a fire, and again, there's that fire-water dynamic. And then Casca's like the earth. So, it's like you got your three elements there. Casca's like grounded like the earth. Guts is fiery. And then you have Griffith, who's like this serene stream. He's like cool as water. It's like, I love it. I love it so much. It's so intriguing, right? I'm fascinated by the coldness of Griffith. He's very calm, collected, but there's this like chill to him that like, it almost is as if he's calculating, but he doesn't really care for Guts. It's not that he spares Guts because he cares. No, he spares Guts because he sees the potential to use him, which is fascinating to me, right? I want to see more of their dynamic, right? And she's like, it's all Corcus's fault that he brought him here. And when Guts stands back up and then falls down, I feel like that's when Griffith is like, I'm not going to kill you. Instead, I'm going to use you because you're more than just, I feel like Griffith's whole thing is it would be a waste to kill someone that could be of so much use to the world, right? Mm-hmm. But he's so pretty. Griffith has like that streaming silver hair. He looks like a snow owl. I'm infatuated already. I'm like, give me all of the Griffith. I need it. Then we get the flashback of Guts running naked from the demonic hand that he slices, right? And he has the long sword. He looks like he's a kid that's maybe 9 or 10, which maybe that is showing that at that age was when all of his life as a mercenary began when he was a kid, right? I'm going to try not to spoil Vinland Saga, and we can talk in the comments down below, but the comparison of Season 1 and Season 2 Thorfinn in this one scene is palpable. The idea of a kid being thrust into this world of darkness at a young age, the idea of the dead bodies, like the demonic hand is like made of blood, like it's a demon made of blood of all the people he's killed. The skeletons that are the ghosts surrounding him of the dead, it's like that weight of his sin surrounding him and touching him, and that's why he's like, I don't want people touching me because it's almost like everyone that Guts touches dies by his sword and become part of the weight of the sin surrounding him and his nightmares. And so he doesn't want anybody touching him because all that it's led to is destruction around him. And that frightens him. And then we see Gambino, who's also naked in the dream, with this like hellhound here, this Doberman beside him, being like, you. And Guts tries to ask Gambino for help. And Gambino's like, well, I would, but you killed me. And so now I can't help you. And Guts tries to phrase it almost as, oh, I didn't mean to kill you. Almost like, oh, well, it just happened. And we don't know the full story. I'm assuming we'll learn about Gambino as we go. Maybe. But I feel like there's the idea that he doesn't want to be touched because he seems to have killed all that he, quote unquote, touches because it's connected to his blade. And he has this weight of his sins and of the dead on him. And maybe he doesn't even know how to acknowledge it. He doesn't realize it's the dead that's weighing him down of his sins. He doesn't maybe know that, but it's there, right? I'm just like, oh my God, it's amazing. I'm all here for it. It's fascinating. But yeah, what do we do with that? Very exciting, very exciting. So I'm very curious to see what else I'm wondering if we'll get more dreams and flashbacks as we go, if we'll get more into his past even beyond this flashback, like with Gambino, if we'll learn more about him and his history and how he started on this journey. I feel like if we don't do it in the anime, we will in the manga. We'll see. So that's interesting, right? But I'm curious to know how that's going to go. And then, yeah, the whole thing with the Hellhound and the idea of the dead chasing after him. Like Gambino sitting in this weird chair with the dog at his lap. Like, I'm so curious why the Black Doberman, if it's a hellhound, if it's symbolic, if there was a dog, like what the hell. But yeah, they're both sitting. Again, Gambino has blonde hair. You think of Askeladd and Vinland Saga having blonde hair. The parallels, maybe. I'm curious, right? But he says, don't talk nonsense. I'm not alive in this world. You ran a sword through my body. You were the one who deserved to die. And yeah, all these skeletons telling him that he's the one that deserved to die. So that's interesting. And I wonder if that relates to what Griffith kind of challenges with him later, saying like, why do you act like you just run into things recklessly, like you don't care if you live or die? And it could be tied to the fact that Guts feels like, well, I'm not supposed to be alive, but I am. So I don't care if I die. If I die, it was meant to happen a long time ago. I'm just, living on borrowed time. Maybe. But then we go from the demonic hand of blood touching him. And he's like, please don't touch me. We go from that to seeing him with Casca draped over him. He says, please don't touch me. And then we see her. And she just looks at him like, I'd rather not be here, thanks. He's like, is it a woman? And she's just staring. He's like, those black eyes. And we find out that she wasn't really wanting to be there at all. She was just made to be there by Griffith because he was shivering from the blood loss. And that is the medieval way of curing blood loss is not a transfusion, but drape a woman over him. Right? We'll just do that. And then he gets up and then goes outside. So I do think there's some interesting things noted about the Band of the Hawk. They're all young. They're all very young. He notes there's not any older men here, which is interesting for a number of reasons because it kind of would reinforce why, since they're all around the same age, there's not really a mentor to be the leader. Instead, the leader is whoever is the strongest, which is Griffith. And I don't know if that's by design, if Griffith wanted a younger troop where they're all around the same age to be able to be in control without any contesting. Because if there was like an old guy that was random there, or a guy in his 30s amongst all these kids that look like they're 25 or younger, then the older guy could be like, well, we need to listen to me because I have the most experience. Whereas the way the Band of the Hawk is now, Griffith is able to have control over it because he's the strongest and they're all the same age. So the way we determine who the leader is by that. So that's interesting to me. I feel like that's done by design, right? He's like, they're a mercenary band. And then he looks over and sees the woman, sees Casca, and she's sitting there arguing with Griffith. Now, Griffith's ears look kind of elven there, and but then later we see him and they're not so elven, so I don't know what that means. But Griffith is just like, I find the dynamic between Griffith and Casca interesting because he seems to she complains to him a lot and, argues with him. And he's just like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing things my way anyway, but thanks for, And then you have both with Griffith and Casca and Guts, you have the white hair, the two individuals with black hair. There's that color dynamic. It's fascinating, right? But I do love that Griffith seems to take her as a colleague that's on somewhat equal bearing. And I think that's why she's even more frustrated in that you treat us like equals, but yet I had to sleep naked next to him because I just happened to have a vagina. So thank you. I feel her conflict there, right? I feel why she's just, angry. And again, Griffith seems like he grabs her shoulders like, hey, sorry, this is just how things are. And I can see her just being like, ugh. You look like a lady. Why don't you sleep next to him? One of those scenarios. And she gets mad and shrugs him away. And that's when she sees him and she's just like punches him in the guts, being like, bastard, don't think that we're close. Don't think I like you. She's just like, and I feel like she also did that because I'm sure that Casca thinks, oh my God, I've finally gotten, the approval and recognition by all these other men in the band. I don't want them thinking that since I had to sleep naked next to this guy, they're going to start making snide comments being like, oh, do you like guts and all this? She's like, I'm going to punch you and show you that, no, I hate you. Leave me alone. Don't get thinking anything, right? Because she doesn't want to be seen that way, right? So, and I like the Guts is like, what did I do? And she's like, you should have been killed by Griffith back there. So then we find out from this one person, Casca gave up her womanhood long ago and lived her life as a mercenary. We find out from the freckle-nosed kid with the knives. Yep. She's far more skilled than the rest of us. It's particularly shocking to her that Griffith gave her the order to lie down by you for 2 days and warm your icy body since you were shivering from the heavy bleeding. It's a woman's duty to warm a man, he said. She punched you out of bed. I'm like, Griffith, why? But then I guess Griffith was like, well, I can't sleep naked next to him. What would the men say for me? I'm the leader. But then he just walks up casually being like, oh, hi, I'm Griffith, as if you didn't know. And he's like, I'm Guts. And he's like, here's your sword. It's such a great sword. I couldn't use it. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like Griffith is like, it's not my style. Griffith has a very slender sword. And he just gives it back to him like it's nothing. And he's like, won't you follow me? All right. And so then we have like, he leads him away. And he doesn't say, when he said, will you follow me? I was like, oh, join the band. But he literally meant follow him away. I was like, okay. And those guys are all like, what's the idea? What is Griffith doing? All these guys just staring. He's like, who are these guys with unpleasant looks in their eyes? He's like, we're the Band of the Hawk. And I'm like, they're looking at you unpleasantly because you killed 4 of their men. Like, that is why. And so he's like, have you ever heard of us? And they're men you don't want to meet on the battlefield. Yes. And so then Corcus says, why is Griffith sparing that punk's life? I assume he wants that man to join us. And then there's little Rickert. Okay, Rickert is, we saw with our own eyes how powerful he is. Rickert is freaking precious, and I don't want him to die. I feel like he's going to die. I feel like he's this character introduced immediately that we're going to be like, oh my god, how cute. And then he's going to like suffer a horrific death. I don't know, but Rickard, he has a little Armin haircut. He looks precious. He has these big bright eyes. He looks like a little cinnamon bun. Why is he here with these mercenaries? Why is Rickard here? I feel like, is Rickard just like a little squire? Like, is he just cleaning the armor for them? How did he end up with this band of mercenaries? Why do they tolerate him? What is happening? I want to know more about Rickard. I'm most interested in Griffith and Rickard at this point. I want to know who he is. He's so precious. Like I love him. He's like, I'm sure he's going to be a fine addition to our army. I instantly feel like he's one of those characters that people are going to be like, I hate Rickard. He's so annoying. I want to protect him and hug him at all costs. I'm like, he seems too pure for this world. He probably won't make it. Yeah, they just kick it away. Like, don't be ridiculous, Rickard. He cut off Earl's arm and sent Dan to his death. The bastard killed our guys. We can't pretend that didn't happen. Right, Pippin? And then Pippin's like, does not really give any answer, as does Casca. I feel like maybe Corcus deals with Rickard for reasons that we'll find out. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is going to be an uphill battle for Guts, because even if Griffith is like, we're going to make him part of our troop because he has strength, I feel like, one, Guts is going to be hard to... Guts doesn't want anything to do with anybody. He's a loner. So him working as a group with these guys that seem like they have pretty good cohesion is going to be a problem. But then, two, they all have kind of a vendetta against Guts anyway because he killed one of their guys and injured another. So, like, it seems like, Griffith, why are you making this uphill battle for seemingly no reason? And Casca goes to kind of see what's happening. And I just love the symbolism of Guts and Griffith on top of the hill, like, to battle one another. I love it. And Guts is like, why didn't you kill me? And he's like, because I want to have you as my soldier. I observed your duel. He's like, you have all this potential, but you're squandering it. You're interesting. I find you very much to my liking. That little phrase, I find you much to my liking. I like you. Let me have you in my collection. You know, he's just, and I love that Guts is just like, what the hell? Like, Guts' expressions, like, I don't know how to deal with you, man. Like, I don't know what to make of you. And Casca just being like, like, I feel like Casca sees this as being a problem. I feel like Casca's like, one, Griffith likes this guy. Okay. I feel like maybe is there some jealousy that she thinks that she was Griffith's like favorite and now Guts is his favorite and she feels jealous about that. There's that possibility. I think also she's wary because we're like, it's like inviting a grenade into your arsenal. You don't know if it's going to go off or not. She's like, she feels like this could be really bad. And 3, she's like, what is Griffith's planning and why don't I know about it? I feel like her being the second in command, she kind of feels like, okay, there's this new guy that's threatening my position. And also, I don't know everything Griffith is thinking. So, and why am I being left out of the loop? Is this something to do with my gender? What is happening? Like, I feel there's a lot of conflict in Casca, and I'm going to be curious to see where we go with this. And I just love that Guts is like, why does he want to be my friend? And he doesn't want to be his friend. He just wants to use him. He's like, what if I say no? And he's like, oh, you won't be my group? And I love that he's like, of course not. I refuse. I'm like, the moment that Guts got up in Griffith's face and was like, I refuse to join you, the moment where Griffith's like, what? You said no to me? The moment he was in his face, I was like, oh, I'm going to love them as dynamic already here for it. I love it. And then he like, Guts is the way they draw Guts. He's so expressive. Like his face emotes so much all the time, which is so funny because he's so quiet usually. It's fascinating. I love it. And Griffith's like, well, let's duel and find out. He's like, why are you acting friendly after you stabbed me? It's you who started the fight. Which is true. Griffith's men did go after him first. Guts is like, I was just walking on my own, minding my own business, and you all attacked me. He's like, you started this. Why are you carrying this on? I didn't ask to be a part of this. He's like, I don't expect you to forget about what I did killing your guys, and I'm not going to forget what you did. And he's like, you and I are obviously enemies. I love it. Guts is just like, Guts has no inkling to try to negotiate or form any bonds with anybody. He's like, it's me against everybody else. And he's like, you and I are obviously enemies. And Griffith's just kind of like, but do we have to be? I feel like Griffith's like, well, why is that? Why do we have to be? He's like, what do you want? He's like, well, that's simple. I want to carve a hole into you for what you've done to me. And so I like that he's like, we're going to settle things with our swords. And if I win, then I can kill you and we'll go. And he's like, and I like that Griffith's like, well, I enjoy settling things by force. Like, he's like, which is a fascinating development. Like, Griffith's like, I would rather settle things by force, but I'm not so heartless that I wouldn't listen to you and negotiate. Maybe. I feel like at the moment that Guts was like, if you win, I'll do whatever you want, I was like, you shouldn't make those kind of bets. You should not make those kind of bets at all. No, that's not good. And I like that Casca's like, she's like, Griffith. And he's like, leave us alone, Casca. And she's like, but, he says, no matter what, I will have what I want. That confidence where Griffith's like, I'm going to win and have my way, is like, that confidence is insane. And I'm here for it. All right. And then Guts is like, that makes me sick. And then, yeah, them going at it. That last shot of them facing each other with the swords against one another, the black versus the white, the dramatic shield. I live for it. It's so iconic. I'm just like, yes, please. I want to know more about Griffith. I want more of their dynamic. I'm really, really, really excited to see the next episode after this. And I don't think I'm going to wait. So, yes. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. So much setup. So much excitement. I'm really excited to see where this goes. But y'all, I'm excited to hear your comments down below as well. So, but I'm curious what you guys thought about this episode. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. But such an iconic conclusion, these two. And we all know that Guts is going to lose the duel. He's going to end up going with these guys because Griffith's still alive. We know that Guts loses the duel because Griffith is still alive. He's still looking for him. So the question is Guts going to end up joining the Band of the Hawk with this group, or is he going to run away? I'm assuming if he loses, he has to do what Griffith says, and Griffith wants him to join the group. So we shall see, right? But in any case, also, he has both of his eyes open. So at one point, Guts loses the ability of one of his eyes. Does Griffith take it from him? We don't know. So in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yes, I'll be back very soon with more Berserk. Bye.